The fact that all we did was just 10 minutes to start is a miracle.
Hello, my name's Duncan, and this is Al, and we are here to do a podcasty thing. This is the second time I've done this intro because me and technology are not the biggest of fans, but we decided that we'd do this because a lot of our interests overlap, and we just thought it would be a fun thing to do to start the year off. So I said there's Al there in his little nook corner with still with Christmas lights behind him as well, by the looks of it. And we're just going to talk some random stuff about books, films, and anything else we can think about. So yeah, here we are. So let's start with you, Al. What are you currently reading?
So I'm currently reading The Wheel of Time, Book 5, The Fires of Heaven, which is once again just a giant book. But I just got finished with a book you might recognise from your local shop, Sharp's Trafalgar, which is again another book in a series. This is book 4 in Sharp, and this time he's at sea. And it's all around the Battle of Trafalgar and Lord Horatio Nelson and all that. So if you're interested in that era, certainly this is definitely a fun book.
As I said on our original recording of this bit, before we had to re-record it, I saw that book in our local charity shop and I didn't pick it up because of the read what you own thing, and I wish I had now. But I've just actually been thinking in between, have you read the Master and Commander books?
I have not. No, that would definitely interest me though, yeah.
Seafaring stuff, and the film is just like one of my favourite films of all time.
Great film.
Yeah.
Great film,
yeah. But said, Bernard Cornwell, you seem to be the man on Bernard Cornwell.
I would like to be the man on Bernard Cornwell because everything I've read so far has been fantastic. But I'm struggling to kind of pull myself away from Sharp because I love the character so much. I don't know if it was a big thing for you as a lad, but being a lad and seeing Sean Bean.
I never really watched it, but I always remember just seeing Sean Bean on the screen playing Sharp all the time, and that's all I really remember. What was it? Back in the 80s, early 90s, was it?
Yeah, it was a 90s show.
Yeah, 90s.
Early 90s, it started, yeah.
I think I was spending too much time getting drunk and going to concerts at the time, I think, so probably didn't watch that much.
Which is also fun. I wasn't old enough to go to concerts when that
I think
kicked off, so.
I think that was my beginning of the 90s, was a lot of it was a bit of a blur. And suddenly bands appear somewhere, and I say, I think I've seen them live. But yes,
what about you? What have you been reading?
Yes. Let me get on to it. What I've been reading is, as I said, what I recently started was Ron Goulart's Tin Angel, which got a dancing spaniel on the front and said, I love this cover, which is, I don't remember who it's by. It's Gauguin, I think his name is. Said something here, didn't it, somewhere? Yeah, Jack Gauguin cover is, and I said, I think it's one of my favourite all-time covers. But this is a door book, actually, and door books, for me, are famously appalling quality. I don't know whether people can see, there's lots of blue speckles on there. Because the paper quality, because the actual condition of this book is really good, but the paper quality is appalling. And I've always had problems with old door books, but door books weren't generally released in this country. They're sort of imported books. So I don't think this has even got it's pre-barcode, but they weren't generally released over here, those versions. But that's about a cybernetic dog called Bowser, who is a smartass, and him and his handler, and they've basically been sent on a secret mission. It's all a satire, and it's all fun. And I said, I like Ron Goulart. I think he's tremendously underrated. And for those who don't know, he wrote William Shatner's Tech War books, which aren't as bad as people think they are. I will stand up for William Shatner's Tech War books. I will. And I read not my dolphin book, one I got from the library about searching for pink dolphins up the Amazon, which is a non-fiction book. I don't know whether it's just me. I do read bits of non-fiction, but when I'm halfway through a non-fiction book, I just think, I just want to read a damn good story now.
Yeah, I get that too.
Yeah, I was halfway through, I thought, this is really good and really interesting, but I just want to read something a bit out there.
Can't beat fiction.
Yeah, a bit of fiction, and that's my main things I'm reading at the moment. Oh, and I read the John Scalzi books, which I had on red shirts and the Gaiju Protective Society or whatever it is. And
Preservation Society.
Preservation Society. I keep getting that name wrong. I was trying to describe it to a friend of mine the other day, and I was getting it wrong then as well. Which is about like an alternate Earth where all the kaiju. And the funny thing is Godzilla was real because apparently he came through from the alternate world, and the Japanese did kill him, and then they based everything else on him. But it was a really, really fun book. And Red Shirts, which is based on the Star Trek idea of if you wear red shirts, unless you're Montgomery Scott, you die when you go down to a planet.
You die, yeah.
Killed in the
away
fun
team
book,
straight away.
But I said my main problem was some of his prose was just annoying because he kept saying he said a lot, which she said, they said, and I couldn't believe that. I said he's owned a major publishing house that no editor picked that up.
Yeah,
it's only crazy. Once you notice it,
you can't unsee it. Yeah,
yeah. It's like when people point out things in films, like you just can't unsee stuff. I hate it.
Yeah, I hate when people point things out.
Yeah.
Like a coffee cup in the background or something. Like no.
Yeah. Oh, the famous stormtrooper hitting his head in the back of Star Wars. Yeah, and you can't unsee it. And it's just like, I wish people would tell me these things.
But look, I'm sure, lots of stormtroopers definitely hit their head at some point. So that's probably too much.
Yeah, that's what we'll be reading. And
what's coming up next for you then?
I don't really know. I said I was looking at that thing there. I said I'm rereading Magician. I've got a few short stories I want to read. And that's really it. I'm not planning. There's something I can't really tell about because it's not in my place to tell about, to do with Roy. If you don't know Roy reads anything.
That's fair enough. I don't want to spoil anything Roy's got coming up.
Roy's got something coming up that he's decided to include me in for some weird reason. But yeah, I've got a few videos. I'm going to do a video that was due out this week, but I'm in the middle of doing it, which is, the title is Booktube has a classics problem. That's all I'm going to leave you with.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm on the hook already.
Yeah, that's the one I'm planning on doing. I'm going to finally do the video of my Blade Runner comparison to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is why I'm in the middle of reading about that book, and another couple on the go. And it's
the long-awaited video.
Yeah, it's getting more and more complicated. The longer I'm going through this, I'm thinking, oh dear, why did I decide to do this?
I know.
Did I say I was going to do one of the short stories? And also, Steve Donahue had a video out a couple of weeks ago about film adaptations, science fiction film adaptations. And I'm going to do one of those because I've got a few in mind that aren't obvious that I think I'd go about. And I was going to do one on fantasy film adaptations as well, which is actually weirdly more interesting because some of the ones
that'd be interesting,
yeah, because some of them you don't even know are adapted from books and very loosely adapted from books. So yeah,
it's always interesting. I think a subject, books comparisons to movies and things like that. There's so much to look at there for sure.
Yeah, so that's my main thing. And the other thing I was looking at doing over the next couple of months is, I just bought a load of stuff here, was I'm going to finally do, I've got huge collections of magazines that I've kept over the years because I'm a hoarder, really. Bunches.
Yeah, same.
Sorry? Bunches of Omni magazines.
My wife hates me for it.
Yeah, bunches of Omni magazines, bunches of old Starlog magazines, and some Fear magazines, which were quite interesting at the time. So I'm going to start taking an issue, basically, and hopefully trying to work out a way of presenting that so that people can look at those if anybody's interested to see that. Because I have so much stuff that I could do. It's just trying to work out a way to present it.
Yeah, I'm sure you could do like a periodical thing where like we're going to look at, I don't know, March 1977, and I've got the 3 magazines that came out that month, and these are the things that I found interesting in them, or something like that. There's so many ways you could do it. It's kind of, you could create content forever almost, couldn't you?
Yeah. The Omni magazines are quite entertaining because the adverts, you can tell the market they're aiming for sort of men in their mid-20s who are in professional jobs who smoke and drink a lot, because you've got all smoking adverts and all these ones for alcohol, but they're all people on boats and Arctic exploring and weird cars and tech stuff. You can tell what their market was.
It's so funny how the marketing for smoking just went away, because it was by far the biggest sector of marketing, and you couldn't go anywhere or see anything without a smoking advert.
I know, I can remember that.
A billboard or something.
I'm showing how old we are now, so I'll probably flick in here, and I'll probably find one almost immediately. No, I did find one for the Atari there.
Well, smoking, Atari.
Nice one there for alcohol.
There we go.
Marlboro one. Big Marlboro ones. And it's just all the way through here. Gordon's gin. It's like, this is their market. And then in between that, I have one of these. An old Atari. But yeah, it's really,
I had the junior model. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was like a black with a silver chrome finish. They decided to re-release it at like a cheaper price point with an updated aerial in the back. I'm not old enough to remember the Woody. That was something my older cousins and stuff used to have. But yeah, when the junior came out, I got one of those, and Atari still lives long in the memory. Centipede especially was my jam.
Yeah. Well, I've got in a cupboard somewhere, I've got a trolley with an old CRT on it, with that plugged in it. So
yes.
Get out and play it.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my sort of plans for next one. Next sort of, what comes to fruition is always random, I always find. But I was hoping to get something this week, but we've had snow. We've had about 2 foot worth of snow that's now gone. Apparently we're going to have 85-mile-an-hour winds tonight, which is like, oh, God, here we go again. So it's all been quite exciting.
Yeah, so it's almost like you live just off Scotland in the North Sea.
Yeah, it's almost like I live in the North Sea here, isn't it? Yeah. But actually, we don't normally get huge amounts of snow. About every 5-6 years, we get a lump of snow compared to the Highlands. But high winds, yeah, you used to. That's why when they started naming them and they're making big things about it, we're thinking, well, it's just normal winter winds here.
Yeah, that's just Wednesday.
Yeah. People put their washing out in that sometimes.
Yeah.
Used to have a
neighbour. Strength pegs, yeah.
Yeah, I used to have a neighbour that used to leave her washing out in sort of storms, and it's like, okay. Well, so what plans have you got video-wise?
I should have a review for The Count of Monte Cristo coming. I'm appearing on Philip Chase's channel, Dear Dr. Fantasy. Yeah, well, again, I think it was a bit of a car wreck of a video because I had a terrible migraine. I could barely see anything. It was like the scene from Dumbo, with the pink dancing elephants.
Yes.
That's the entire thing was like that for me. It was like staring into one of the old kaleidoscopes, the old cardboard tubes of kaleidoscopes.
Yeah.
It was emotional. And then, I'll probably start reading Guy Jin by James Clavell. So another huge book. So I won't be reading many books because they're always like 1,000 pages at the moment. So, but yeah, I'll be reading this after for sure.
That's why I like the Ron Goulart one. It's only 160 pages.
I'm looking forward to when the crime and sci-fi comes back around on my little carousel, because I could do with some kind of like 200 or 300 page books again.
Well, if you can hit the sort of sci-fi and the crime from about the 70s, 80s, they always seem to be most of them seem to be sort of under 200 pages.
Yes, very nice.
Yeah. And I don't know what this thing is about making books ridiculously long.
Yeah, I suppose you find authors that don't waste a lot of time and a lot of words in their prose and stuff, and then you get authors that are very self-indulgent. Like Alexander Dumas, who I've been reading the last couple of months, he just loves it. He'll just talk to you forever, given half a chance, I think. So yeah, I think it just depends on the author most times, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've only ever read I think I read The Three Musketeers many years ago, but there's a new French production of it, film, that's just been released, and it's in 2 parts. I think the second part's due to be out soon.
Yes,
the first part's
Yeah, perfect. Because I was just thinking of that because I was in the on the underground last week or something, and I remember seeing the posters for the second part, saying it's coming soon. But I know it's already been released in France, but I couldn't find anywhere to watch it. So I've already recorded the first movie, but I wanted to wait until the second one comes out to kind of watch them relatively back to back because it looks like they've just carved the first book into two to me, which makes perfect sense when you've read the book. It makes perfect sense to make it two movies.
Apparently, it's like the first adaptation the French have ever done of it, like film-wise.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it just our obsession with that kind of era of France that has made it so popular? Are they not really into it? I don't know.
Because I remember was it Richard Lester, the director, who did all the ones with Oliver Reed in?
Yeah. Oh, I've got them on a Blu-ray. They released like a Blu-ray double pack, and I watched them. I think it was Easter just gone, because I remember them being really good fun, and seeing them on TV back in the day, and yeah, they're just absolutely balmy. Like it's nothing but like one-liners and sword fights and slapstick comedy all the way.
And trying to guess how sober Oliver Reed was at the time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, drunk mostly by the looks of that. Like every scene, he seemed to be steaming drunk, which is, that's just fine. It's Oliver Reed, isn't it?
So what else I got? Sorry, just checking my list I've got in front of me. Oh yeah, the other thing I read that was quite interesting was the Alien 3 script.
Okay, which one?
Well, no, the one that William Gibson wrote that was never produced, and it was put novelized by Pat Callaghan. It's not particularly long; it's about 160 odd pages, and it was really quite interesting. I can see why they didn't do it because it's very much like Aliens in the whole feel of it, but they didn't kill off Hicks or anybody like that in this one. Bishop was around, but yeah, it was quite an interesting read. I can see why they didn't produce it. And it didn't feel. I've not read huge amounts of William Gibson, so I'm not an expert on him, but it didn't really feel like William Gibson. If that makes any sense, the way it was written.
How would you compare it to like Alan Dean Foster? Because when I was a kid, I read the Alien novelization by Alan Dean Foster, and I found that really, really good. I think he did a fabulous job of that.
Oh, Alan Dean Foster is just a master of the craft. He can bring anything to the bits he adds to it. And I think that's why people keep going back to him, is the fact that within the constraints he can do so well.
Yeah.
I think that's why people always go back to him, and that's why he is so successful at that, which is a shame because in some ways it's overshadows some of his normal work, which is really good. Things like Spellsinger, which is anthropomorphic animals as wizards and things, which is really, really good book. But yeah, comparing to the Alan Dean Foster thing, I don't think it was as good. But then I'm trying to think. I think that could be because it wasn't totally polished because it was only a first draft of a script, and then obviously it was converted to a book. So it's very hard to only judge by that. But it was an interesting read. My problem is I actually like Aliens 3. I'm one of the few people that does.
Yeah, it's a good movie. And David Fincher, wasn't it? That one?
David Fincher, yes. It was his first film.
And it feels like him as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it got cut to hell by everybody. There is a version which I've got on Blu-ray, which is like, it's not a director's cut, it's like an extended cut.
Yeah.
And that actually works well. But all the bits when they're going through the prison and all the point of view bits, I love. And I just quite like the film. But
yes, it's frustrating when they cut a movie like that. I think that movie, they cut loads of it, didn't they?
Yeah,
like
there's a bit in the version, the extended version I've got, there's a chunk at the beginning that actually makes it make more sense as well.
Yeah. I think I've seen that version. And yeah,
a bit with Charles Dance finding them, I think.
Yeah, Charles Dance. I forgot he was in that. Yeah. Yeah, he's the doctor, isn't he, or something?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I've got to watch it again. It's been probably 20 years at least since I watched it, so I'll have to watch it again.
For a while.
Yeah, it's whenever they first released that cut. I think that's the last time I watched it. Yeah, so it's been a while, definitely.
But then I quite like Prometheus, so what do I know?
Yeah, I don't understand what people's problem is with
I
Prometheus.
know, I liked it because it was
Really,
totally different. It made no sense, but it was totally different.
Yeah, I don't understand, what people's problem with having something that doesn't, follow a kind of a cookie cutter for Alien or Aliens. Everyone's so precious about Alien and Aliens, and don't get me wrong, Aliens like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
and I think it stands up far above any of the other movies in the series. But I thought Prometheus was a pretty much excellent sci-fi movie. I didn't really see any issues with it at all. It was well acted, it was well shot, it was gripping. But people get so obsessed with their, with their canon and everything, and they don't want anyone to touch it, and it's just.
And the thing with Ridley Scott, even if it's bad, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, and I love Ridley Scott, and I think sometimes, I think he enjoys making a big spectacle so much he kind of forgets himself along the way sometimes. But he's a great director. I think anyone that wants to give Ridley Scott a hard time should look back at those movies that didn't have a huge budget that he did, and look what he managed to do.
Well, look at the Apple adverts. Apple adverts he did, which are really stunning.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously the team he's got, Scott Free, he knows those guys, and his cinematography is always on point and stuff. But I always think back to is it The Duelists, wasn't it? With
oh yes, that's
Carradine and Keitel. He can really direct actors as well, and people forget that, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, I picked up a DVD of that a while ago, and I've not got around to watching it again.
Yeah, that's a fantastic movie, definitely. So, what have you seen on Booktube lately? I don't think we've done that yet, have we?
I haven't done that. I had a list here because I've got another screen on the go here. I saw Steve Dunhu's 5 films, which was quite interesting. 5 adaptation films.
That's right, the sci-fi adaptations, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm going to do a version of anyway. But as with Steve, he always rambles on and justifies his choices, even if he's wrong half the time.
Definitely wrong half the time.
I keep telling him, you're always wrong.
Picks, though.
And he goes, no, you're not. I saw one from Michael Romeo yesterday, because he's doing the Read What Your Own challenge along with me, and he was just saying how much he's actually quite enjoying it. But it sounds like he's got about 2,000 unread books in his house. Which
that helps.
It's almost to the Michael K. Vaughan level of ridiculous amounts of unread books. Like I've got a lot of unread books, but not that many.
Yeah.
And there was a nice little one from Mark from Book Time with Elvis. He was trying to raise some money for his local, because where does he live? Croatia or Serbia? Or he'd probably kill me.
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic. I knew this. And was trying to raise a little bit of money to get some English books, because there's kids at his school want to read some English texts. And I thought that was quite a nice little video. And the final one I watched was Michael Vaughan did a thing on the Complete Adventures of Tarzan, and as he's an expert on all Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff, it was always fascinating. And on a sad note, I don't know if anybody saw my community tab. If anybody watched Jennifer Brooks, did a lot of stuff on classics and things. And I used to dip in and out of her videos and stuff, and she used to know her things. And she sadly died, and she was only 31.
Oh no!
And there was this a video came up that her mum put up, just saying that she suddenly died no of his course or anything. But she said really interesting booktube. If you're interested in classics and things along that line, a bit of fantasy, she's do that, and hopefully I think her mum's going to leave all the videos up, but they're well worth checking out. But I just thought that's really quite sad. As she said, she was only 31. It was just like a bit of shock when that one came to my feed.
Yeah, that's so young.
I know, it was just like, and it sounded like
half a life, is it?
I know, it's just like, wow. It was just, I saw that there, and I was just really quite shocked. Yeah. And I said, she's not a booktuber that I watched lots of, but they were the ones that came up my feed, and every now and then I dip into her work, and I said she knew her stuff. I think she was a librarian at some university as well, which meant she really did know on point and stuff and work on classics, which people like that are always really interesting to watch. What else have I got to my? That's why I keep looking to my left, and there's what else I wrote down, and that's about it for any ones I've seen. not watched as much this week, let's say, because we had Snowpocalypse this week. Which half my task was, where do I find a loaf of bread? But yeah, so have you watched anything?
Yeah, three videos probably stood out for me. One, a channel that's known to probably everyone that's going to be watching this is on Michael K. Vaughan's channel. He did a video on The Hobbit that I really appreciated, because I love hearing people's old stories and seeing old copies of The Hobbit.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, so I always enjoy a good Hobbit video. In fact, I saw Roy. He described the whole section of fantasy as Hobbit bothering the other day, which it broke me. It that won the internet for me that week. It was just so good. And then over on, I don't know if you've ever seen the channel Alice in the Giant Bookshelf.
I think technically I'm subscribed, but I don't see that many videos. But sometimes it's just getting round to them. Sometimes, because normally what I have is I go down my subscription list and sort of whack them to the watch later list, and hopefully I'll get round to them. Yeah,
it's one of those channels that's mostly contemporary and classics. But she does have a good appreciation of sci-fi and fantasy as well. So I tend to watch one video a month when stuff comes around that's interests me. And she did a video on her worst books of 2023, and she had a very spicy 2023. She had a lot of DNFs and books she didn't like, and authors that she thought she liked that she doesn't anymore, things like that. And then I found a channel that I had actually seen before, but for some reason I wasn't subscribed. I think it's either called Book Piled or Book Pilled.
Yes, no, I've
heard of this guy.
Yes, I know him.
Yeah,
he's now traveling half the world, I think, doing stuff as well.
Yeah, he seems to be in a different spot every week. Right?
Yeah, he started off. He was in San Diego, and he's like a reseller in that. And he used to resell a lot of books, but he also used to collect them, and he had loads of stuff. And then he decided that he was going to go off around the world, and every now and then you see him in weird apartments, finding weird science fiction books there.
Yeah, and he did such a great video. He ranked every sci-fi and fantasy book he read last year in order. So starting with the one he didn't enjoy, right up to what he thought was his greatest read. And he had a crazy year. The 74 sci-fi fantasy books he read were just mad. He's such a good reading year. It's quite interesting even if he was only spending 1 or 2 minutes on each book, it was just a roller coaster 40-minute video of just some fantastic authors and books. Yeah.
Yeah, so
and that's about it, really.
Yeah, he just seems to be traveling the world. I have but yeah, that was all the ones I mainly asked. Because do you watch any of those sort of really bigger sort of booktubers at all?
It depends what you mean by bigger, because the biggest booktubers that I've watched are probably about 100,000 subscribers, which again is massive, I suppose. But not as much. I find the smaller channels have more personality.
Yeah, there's not many of the big ones I watch. Murphy Napier, I seem to watch her vlogs a lot, because I just find that she seems, even though she doesn't read a lot of what I read, well, she does occasionally, but she always seems so excited about it all.
Yeah, she's got great energy, Murphy.
Yeah, and she always be sat on her porch talking about it. It's all quite weird, but I normally whack those on in the background when I'm doing stuff. But there's very few of the bigger ones. They always seem to cover the same sort of 4 books. Yeah,
it tends to be whatever's kind of hot.
Yeah,
a lot of the time. Yeah,
and that's probably the reason why I've never read any Brandon Sanderson, because I always see videos on it. Because I've got, I think, what have I got down there? Yeah, I've got the first 3 Mistborn books I've had for years, and I've never got around to reading. And I know you recently read them and you really enjoyed them, didn't you?
Yeah, for me, it's I wouldn't recommend them to everyone. You need a tolerance for fantasy. You have to be able to be engaged by a simpler prose, like a YA style prose.
Yeah.
But there's certainly lots of fun. And if you're into magic systems and stuff like that, and combat, there's plenty of that in there for sure. But I wouldn't say it's the highest level of
I think that's probably one of the things that's put me off, is the modern fantasy obsession with magic systems.
Yeah, it's the absolute go-to for that. It's the second book especially just seems like almost like a textbook of this is how these systems work. And I feel like that could have been such a good duology And I feel like maybe there's about 500 pages didn't need to be in that trilogy personally, but I'm quite a harsh critic usually when it comes to books, so I don't want to put people off. It's a good series, but
so I read
definitely.
somewhere somebody describing it, this obsession with magic systems. It's like reading a book about racing cars and them describing how the internal combustion engine works. You don't need to know it. It just happens. As long as there's some logic within the system, within the world, it doesn't really matter how it works.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the opinion I sort of take on it. But yeah, I'm probably totally wrong anyway. That's probably why I've not engaged much with fantasy after, I think, one of the most modern fantasy I've read. Probably after year 2000, I sort of gave up on fantasy when it started going down that sort of lengths, which is probably a bit harsh on me, but there's so much out there to read older stuff as well, though.
Yeah, I think because there's so much fantasy now, it's hard to kind of pick what you think would be appealing to you, because it's a very popular genre now, and it's been it's just a wash with new authors and new books all the time. It's hard to find the gems, especially if you've got like a particular style you like, sword and sorcery style, or if you like a more scientific style. But I think I was discussing with Philip on his channel how Mark Lawrence is a good one for like science fiction readers, because his books read more like a science fiction book than a fantasy book, and I feel like he is a science fiction author that just fell in love with fantasy, but never changed the way he wrote, if that makes sense.
Have you ever read Mark Lawrence's reviews on Goodreads?
I've read a couple of them, yeah.
Yeah, go down the Enid Blyton ones. His reviews of Enid Blyton ones that he reads to his daughter are hilarious.
I've not read those, no.
Yeah, no, he was reading them to his daughter, and his reviews were fantastic. If you ever got a spare sort of half hour or so, they're well worth reading. But
I'll have to look them up, yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the few that he does a lot of reviews on Goodreads, and they're always quite entertaining. Yeah, I've not actually ever read any of his. Did I read a short story of his? I think he had a short story that was that he had on his website once that I read, and I've seen his books around. I've seen more of his fantasy books than his science fiction ones. So
yeah,
but one day I might have to dip my toes in there. So I think we need to get on to the Bernard Cornwell one, Winter King.
Yes, Winter King. I've got. I could put a copy of the shelf as well.
That cover's horrible. That is a horrible cover.
That is atypical of what you'd see in your local Waterstones now, though, right?
Yeah, I said I found it. This was which date was this published? Originally 95. Yeah, I know that. Can't find it. Must have been done in the past few years. It was actually in our Red Cross shop, so I found it. But I dipped into the TV series, which is on ITV. The fuss I had trying to watch it, because you go to
it's the same.
The ITV streaming thing is the worst thing in the world. But we go in there and it says it's there, and we clicked on it and it says this is not available for you, and we go, what? And what
I had the same thing.
What we had to go to the STV app, Scottish Television app, and then watch it via that one, because it's related to IT, it's geographically to where we started watching it. About 5-6 episodes in, and the first episode was a bit all over the place.
Yeah.
But the second episode is brutal. Not as brutal as the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, but it's pretty sort of going along those sort of lines. It's absolutely
nothing's that brutal.
No, I remember watching that, and I never read it and didn't have a clue about it. I watched it, and I was just like, "What the hell?" But yeah, but the second episode of it is really, really absolutely brutal, and I think we're up to about 6 or 7 at the moment, so we'll probably finish it this weekend. I'm really enjoying it, but reading around it, a lot of people saying that it's not the best adaptation from the book. So I'm really interested in dipping into the book in the next month or so. My email's telling me something which it shouldn't do, because I turned them off, but they ignored me. The Last Kingdom TV series, I think, is better, which I really, really love, and I watched that my wife was in hospital about 3 months before COVID. We all had a lockdown there, and she was in there about 4 or 5 days, and I was just sat in there, and basically I took a streaming stick with us, chucked it in their TV, used their Wi-Fi, and I watched all the Last Kingdom when I was sat in the room that was out.
Great series.
While she was sleeping in a corner, and it was a really, really great series. I said I've got about 5 of the books now, but I'm waiting till I have them all before I start them, because I have a feeling there could be ones that once I start, I will want to finish the whole lot.
Yeah. I found the Last Kingdom. Everyone at the time was watching Vikings, and I was trying to tell people that the Last Kingdom's better than Vikings, but you have to make it past the first couple of episodes, because I think, like The Winter King, that first episode of the Last Kingdom's not a good episode. It's not a good jumping off point, but the series quality is so high.
Yeah,
I think by the end of it is one of the better series that came out that in that period for sure. But I had the same issue with Winter King. I found out that it was going to be on ITVX, so I loaded up the app. It didn't work on my TV. I loaded it up on my Skybox or whatever. I got in. It said I couldn't watch the show. I didn't understand why. It was right there. I couldn't watch it. Okay, fine. So I had to go on a web browser, go to itv.com, and then watch the episodes, stream the episodes on the website, and then expand the picture to fill the screen. Oh, it was just a disaster. I was like, how have you? And the silly thing is, it was being advertised constantly on telly. Including on all the big, Sky TV movies and shows and sports and stuff. It was like, oh, watch it now on ITVX, and then as soon as you load ITVX, you can't watch it. So what's the point of spending? I'm assuming it's tens of thousands of pounds advertising it in prime time TV and not being able to let people watch it. I don't understand. Very weird.
Yeah, I said I think it's probably one of the worst streaming apps out there. Really, amount of
shocking.
Yeah, but no, it's quite interesting watching The Winter King though, because they've taken like Arthurian legend he has and just totally twisted it and done really weird things. And the guy playing Arthur, you look at him, you think he doesn't look like a King Arthur, but once you get about 3 episodes in, he is really good.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, I've got loads of books like adaptations of King Arthur from trying to think some David Drake books and things like that. And one day I might have to go through them all and say, do a video on books that adapt the King Arthur myth in weird ways.
Yeah, someone bought me one over Christmas. I think it's is it the Once and Future King? Is that the one?
It rings a bell.
Yeah,
it's a line from.
I'm trying to remember. Oh, yeah, there's so many. It's trying to remember them all, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's been adapted so many times.
Because I've got another one on my list to read. I've got Robert Holstock's Celtica, which was released sort of about 2000, and he mixes it with Greek myth as well. And have you ever read Mafago Wood from the 1970s, which is just, more people need to read it. It's just a beautiful fancy book. And he said he did this King Arthur mixed with Greek and Roman stuff, and it sounds intriguing, but I've not got around to reading it. But there's so much Arthur stuff around, and so many people have done weird things with it. You could just spend years just reading books about stories about King Arthur, I think.
Yeah. The one piece of media I always loved for that was that the movie Excalibur was just...
Oh, John Boorman's Excalibur, which is really close to the...
I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Mallory's Arthur de la Mort, which is based on, loosely, it's actually quite close to that. If you ever read it, I've got the Oxford Classics of it. But it is a beautiful movie. And what I always like is there's the fight between Lancelot and Arthur, and they're in this armor and they just get knackered halfway through it because they just lift huge swords and in their armor. But it's just
you really get the feeling in that, definitely. That plate armor is heavy, and guess what? After about 5 or 6 swings, both guys, it's basically just like, right, who's actually gonna be able to get enough of energy together to make the last swing kind of thing.
Yeah, the guy playing Merlin
is so good.
I'm trying to think of his name. I can't remember it, but yeah, John Boorman, as random he was when he was on form, like on that film, it was stunning. And also, Patrick Stewart's in it.
Yeah,
Luke Picard is in the middle of a battle there somewhere.
I thought he was
and
good
Liam Neeson's in there as well.
Yeah, there's so many actors in there. Yeah, for sure. I love when you go back to those movies. You see, oh yeah, I remember he was. Yeah, Patrick Stewart in Dune. I always thought was
yes,
great in that as well.
he's wandering around carrying
Totally
the pug most
believable,
of the time.
you know. Yeah, yeah. I thought that was a fantastic portrayal, and but it's hard going and reading Dune and then like trying not to picture him now. It's just like
I just think the battle pugs that David Lynch put in the little pugs, and you think, what?
Yeah.
Well, I love that film. I do. As much as it's totally
That's a great
flawed and makes
film.
no sense whatsoever, it is just looks gorgeous, and
yeah, it's
paid
entertaining.
I paid a ridiculous amount of money for some special edition, 4K special edition of it last year.
Did you?
And
I've got the
stunning.
when it was re-released on Blu-ray. I haven't got the 4K.
I mean, it looks absolutely stunning, but it's just a set design there, and it's totally flawed. I agree, it's a totally flawed film. I said I'm not the biggest fan of the novel, which was probably why I forgive it a lot more than a lot of people do. But I watched the Denis Villeneuve first part, which ended up being better than I thought it was going to be. But
yeah, I thought it was better than it was going to be. Yeah.
I still think it's got some of the same issues that David Lynch's film had. But I'm trying to work out whether it comes together in the second part.
I think, as far as bringing like the prose to screen, the right point is somewhere in between the two.
Yeah. Have you seen?
I don't think the Villeneuve one is like it's not eclectic enough. You know, it's not. It doesn't kind of transport you enough. It just feels too based in. It doesn't match the tone of the book. Whereas I feel like Lynch is matching the tone of the book, but maybe not getting a lot of the basics of the filmmaking in perfectly. You know, so
the book is really an epic fantasy if you look at it.
Oh yeah, it's I don't know what you call it. Like it's an acid trip. It's
the
book.
Have you seen the Sci-Fi Channel's adaptation of it from 2000?
I haven't, but I have recorded it. I think they played it just before Christmas, and I put it on record.
It is actually very close to the book.
That's what I heard. Yeah, but maybe it didn't have the budget, but it actually was the closest. Yeah.
If you ignore the weird bits that you think, are they really in sound there? If you ignore some of the bits like that, it is actually very, very close to the book. But I said I think I've said to you before, I'm confused about the sort of veneration the book gets now compared to what it was sort of 20, 30 years ago. It's a good book. I agree with that. It's not. It's one of these books that I look at and think, yes, I see why people love it, but for me, it doesn't quite work. It's a bit like Ursula Le Guin. Everybody seems to love Ursula Le Guin. I've read a lot of her stuff, and I see why it's loved, and I see why it's important, but I just don't get on with it.
I think that's literally, you've hit the nail on the head. Then it can be difficult to get on with. Dune was my favorite book of last year. I think it's absolutely amazing, but I quite like that style of writing where you're not necessarily always meant to be 100% up with what's going on, and you kind of get dragged along by the nose a little bit, and your expectations have been subverted all the time. And obviously, Le Guin is really like famous for doing that. So, like, if that's not your thing, being discombobulated all the time and stuff, then it's obviously not going to be.
Like my favorite, like Frank Herbert, I'm trying to think what the series of books is. The first book is The Jesus Incident, which I absolutely love, which is all about an AI who tells everybody he's God and taking over this colonization of this planet. And to me, that is better than Dune, but nobody ever remembers the book. But no matter what he did, big ideas, and he could do them well.
Yeah, I think that's all the best science fiction authors. Really, they had the ability to put like a crazy big idea into writing, which is like it's the best genre for it. There's nothing like it, really, is there?
Yeah.
Sci-fi is the place to go for big ideas, for sure.
Yeah, that was the so I don't think I've watched anything else really book related movies. I was going to go and see Aquaman the other day, but we got snowed out, so I couldn't go. It all got
I haven't watched any of the Aquaman stuff yet, other than what they put into the no. I'm just a little bit worried generally about Jason Momoa as because I'm for me, like, Aquaman's Arthur Curry, so like who's this Jason Momoa guy like being Aquaman? He just doesn't, like, from what I remember of Aquaman in the comics, it just doesn't seem to match. So I'm a little bit
the first film,
standoffish.
It's got what's his name? Oh god, my brain's gone dead now. The guy that played the Green Goblin in the original Spider-Man films.
Oh wow, yeah, of course. So William Dafoe.
Yeah, it's got William Dafoe riding a hammerhead shark, and then it's also got an octopus playing drums. It is absolutely bonkers.
That sounds pretty bonkers.
Yeah, it really, really is. It's totally out there, and I really enjoyed it. And that's why was going to go and see the second film, but they're doing weird things with the DC universe anyway, so who knows what's going on.
It's
not related.
I can't believe what they did to that Flash movie. That was I took my son to go watch that at the cinema, and I had to apologise to him because I was like, I didn't realise.
Not even seen the Flash movie.
Oh, it's the issue is they've decided to rely so heavily on CGI, and basically spent about £10 on the entire budget of the movie. So there is some CGI in there that is the CGI, because having watched it recently, like the movie Jumanji with Robin Williams, had much more advanced CGI than the latest Flash movie.
Oh dear,
much more. I mean, much more realistic. And that's not me being hyperbolic in any way. That they just decided basically to reshoot the movie on the smallest budget imaginable, but then still completely rely on CGI, but not spend the money to actually do it properly. Yeah, it's carnage.
They never give the effects houses enough time, do they, or money to do it properly? That's
if they got more than 6 weeks, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. Have you ever seen an adaptation of Ray Bradbury's The Sound of Thunder?
No.
It is, for bad CGI, what happened was halfway through, all the funding was withdrawn because the studio went bankrupt. And basically all the CGI, they farmed out and people did it for free and things like this. So there's some horrific CGI in it. But they tried. They got a film out.
Yeah.
I always say that no matter how bad the film is, to actually make a film, if you think about what goes into it, bringing all these elements together, you should, no matter how bad the film is, you should be congratulated for even getting anything like that out.
Yeah, I think it did okay in the end for them. I think they might have recuperated most of their money. I don't know how, because it sounded like about 80% of it was reshot, but yeah, they've not handled it well, have they?
The problem is
it's a real shame, because I've always really, really loved DC Comics.
Yeah.
And I probably, as a teenager, I probably read more DC than I did Marvel. And it's just very upsetting to see some of the way some of it's been handled, because some of it's been so good and some of it's been so bad, and it's just so inconsistent. You don't know what you're getting from one movie to another. So the
problem is they've been so obsessed with trying to link it all up rather than concentrating on singular stories, which would have been better.
Yeah,
definitely. As much as I like Batman, how many Batman films do we need?
I could always do another Batman film. I absolutely love Batman.
Saying that, I did like the Robert Pattinson one. It was basically a detective film.
Yeah, which I think that works really well.
Yeah.
If you make Batman as a detective, I think that it's a funny period for Batman, isn't it? Because the detective side of it, I feel was never really, even though it was in Detective Comics, it was never really where it started or where it ended up as. But in the middle, he had some really good stints as a detective. So yeah.
And Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie I really loved as well.
Oh, that was an excellent movie.
Yeah.
I think that could have been about anything really, though.
Yeah.
With that script and that acting.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the sort of film-wise that I think I've watched anything to do with books. Yeah.
Yeah, I've read some movies. That's why I watched the movies, but it wasn't book-related, really. No.
Yeah. But yeah, check what's on my list of stuff that we had down to talk. Anything you particularly want to talk about?
No, not particularly. I would recommend, if anyone's into like modern crime fiction, the Michael Connelly Bosch books are quite popular.
Is that what the TV series is based on?
That's right, yeah. And he's actually an executive producer, and it starts off as quite a like traditional serialized cop show.
Yeah, I watched the first season.
Yeah, it becomes better and better. I would say probably somewhere around maybe mid-season 3, it really hits a real high note, and it kind of stays there from there. They brought him back as a private eye, which was kind of I feel like Michael Connelly was always trying to go for that because it's a very noir feeling show anyway.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's now a private eye kind of makes perfect sense. But the show, unfortunately, I think has had a lot of its funding pulled at that point. So it's quite annoying that he's finally got to the stage where he's like a private dick and it's all very noir, but they don't necessarily have the quality anymore behind it, behind the show. So it's a bit disappointing in that way, but it certainly was a fun ride.
Yeah. The problem you've got now, as much as there's more funding from the streaming services, there's so much stuff out there that they pull funding really quickly, which is why sort of half these things only ever run for like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Which can be really annoying.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping a lot of these shows, even if they don't do so well, to kind of, continue at least to some kind of arc. Because it does worry me about like a Wheel of Time. I can't make up my mind whether I actually want to watch any more of that Lord of the Rings show because
I quite enjoyed it, and I love Lord of the Rings. But I think what I did to myself, I think, okay, this is like Lord of the Rings adjacent. This is not anything really to do with Lord of the Rings.
Again, if you can separate the two nicely, then I think there is stuff there to enjoy. But yeah, I found it such a up and down roller coaster of emotions of like, oh wow, that looks amazing, and I hope we get to see this. Oh, we do get to see this. Oh, that's not the way I would have done that. Oh, my life.
Yeah. So, but if you think of it, in the concept of Lord of the Rings and stuff, you think, okay, I'm not sure what you did there, but basically they did it from the appendices from Lord of the Rings, which is there's a lot of information there. They were really, really.
I wish they had tried to, go after the license more and get more of the license, because I would have preferred to have seen them tell like maybe the great tales, and done them as a couple of seasons per tale, maybe, because it would have made it so much easier to adapt into a screenplay rather than having to basically, take a couple of lines, rub them together, and pull 10 hours of television out of it or something. It's tough. It is tough.
But it's weird. I'm trying to think what they're called now. The Hobbit-like people. Trying to think what they're called.
Yeah, the halflings, I suppose, or
Yeah, they are mentioned in the. I thought, did they exist in the? And I looked in the appendices. They do exist. But there's about 2 lines that mention them, and they've expanded them to the main people.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, isn't it? Because it gives you so much license, which in a lot of ways is great for television, but at the same time, it doesn't really give you anything to lean back on. You've kind of got to, you've got to be really on your A game, because otherwise it's going to pull apart. So.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm confused about whether that's actually going to last more than a couple more seasons anyway.
What, most expensive TV show ever made?
Yeah, so. I know they've got one coming out, but the other thing is when they have 2 years between each season, it's like, oh God, can you be?
That's all of those big shows now, though. I mean, House of the Dragon was the same, wasn't it? And Stranger Things and all that. So
I've not watched House of the Dragon yet.
Oh, you'll love it. You'll absolutely love it.
Yeah, because Rosie, my wife, was saying the other day, we need to start watching that. So many things I want to watch at the moment. It's just getting time to do it.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, they've managed to they've managed to bring it to screen a lot better than they did Game of Thrones. It's coming across from the source material a lot cleaner, which is really, really nice to see.
Yeah, the thing with Game of Thrones was just weirdly, I've not read the books. I own them, but I've not read them. I've just, never got around to it. But it was really weird that you made all this big thing about the danger of the White Walkers, and then in one episode, that's it, they're gone now. And it's like, okay, so what the hell was the past 4 seasons about then? And that was one of my biggest complaints.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be really, really tough to keep that big a project going. And I think it just crumbled under its own
But no
weight.
matter what, there's
really.
bits of it that are stunning and really well done, and there's other bits of it you think, okay, they brushed that bit, or you got bored there, or as you said, a production like that is just really, really hard. And what didn't help is that George R. R. Martin still hadn't finished it, so he ended up starting making stuff up after a while.
Yeah, again, it's a real shame because obviously, George, he loves to make screenplays. He's a TV guy at the end of the day. He's a screenwriter, isn't he? So he wants to, and as well, his one of his first loves is sci-fi as well. So he doesn't want to stop writing sci-fi. He doesn't want to stop writing for TV shows.
His sci-fi stuff is really good.
Yeah, and so it must be really hard for him because he's so passionate about TV and science fiction. For him to focus so much of his time on just one fantasy thing that people have become obsessed about must be so annoying for him. So I do feel really bad for him as a human being, because the guy just wants to live his life.
People always complain, say, "Oh, writers, they owe us these things," and I just think, no, they don't owe you anything.
No.
I always quote the War Against Couture, David Gerald books. I started reading in the 80s. I think the first book came out. This last one came out in 1995. There's meant to be 3 more books in the series, and he's not done them yet. And I want to know what happens, but he went off. He had a family, raised his son, what he wanted to do. But the annoying bit is in 2006 he released something saying, "Oh, it's going to be out next year." And I'm thinking, and it wasn't. And I think, don't make promises, just say that.
Sometimes that works though, right? I mean, when it's left undone, it kind of has a cult status, right? Like obviously the go-to everyone always talks about is like Firefly. Yeah, you just got a little bit of Firefly. Oh, okay, we made a movie to try and wrap things up and stuff, but I don't think it would have had the cult status it had if it had just had the chance to just fizzle out like most TV shows do over like 10
seasons. I never saw it when it was originally broadcast. I called it afterwards.
Yeah, I knew about it because of the movie coming out. That's kind of what drew me to it, because when they were going to release that movie, someone told me about it. Said, "Oh, this movie is actually kind of the conclusion of a TV show that got canned." I was like, "Oh,
well,
wow."
The movie was quite interesting because they wrote it all. They had a big budget, and then they halved the budget or something in the studio. And it was like, "Okay, how are we going to do this now?" But they did a really good job of it.
I think they did a fantastic job. Yeah, I thought the movie was excellent. It's exactly what I thought a movie of Firefly would be, really.
So, anything else before we wrap this up for our first ever podcasty things?
It's a big one. It's a bit of a beast.
I could go off and edit a few bits together. I've got anything else on my list over there? No, I will put. Yeah, I think probably we need to maybe wrap this up and go and live our lives, I think, for a bit.
Yeah. And I suppose let's hope we can get together and make an episode 2 of the podcast thing.
Hopefully somebody will watch this. If you're out there, hopefully you'll watch this and make us want to do one. You never know, you could be a guest star at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great to get other people on, definitely.
We can get some people on to stop our rambling. But I said it's the first time we've done anything like this, so hopefully we'll get better.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for having both of us. And